The world knew Sarah as a simple maiden from the village of Oakhaven, her days woven with the rhythm of the loom and the scent of wild herbs. Her heart, however, yearned for a different tapestry, one stitched with threads of true love and gentle companionship. She possessed a quiet beauty, her long flowing blonde hair cascading in loose waves and intricate braids, framing a face often touched by a calm, alluring smile. Her blue eyes, deep as the summer sky, held a captivating sparkle, yet also a wistful longing for a love story of her own. She imagined a strong, kind hand holding hers, a comforting presence beside her through the changing seasons. Her rustic attire, a cream-colored blouse tucked into a brown leather bodice, adorned with intricate hand-tooled details, spoke of a life close to the earth, far removed from the gilded cages of royalty that was, until the royal decree shattered the serenity of her world. The Crown Prince Dirk of Eldoria was a name whispered with a mixture of awe and pity, a man of formidable physique, broad-shouldered and strong, with short, light brown hair that framed a perpetually serious expression. He was handsome, undeniably, but he was also cursed. A dark magic, laid upon him in his infancy, ensured that any living thing he touched with his bare skin would sicken and perish. Plants wilted, animals grew frail, and whispers claimed that even a human skin would burn and blister at his touch, their life force slowly draining away. For 2 decades he had lived an existence of profound isolation, his hands perpetually gloved, his heart encased in a fortress of despair. He was Eldoria's hope, yet also its greatest sorrow. The kingdom, however, could not afford sorrow. King Theron, frail and failing, needed an heir. Dirk needed a queen, and most desperately a way to bear children. Many women had been brought before him, willing or unwilling, tested in the cruelest of ways. Each had recoiled, each had fallen ill, each had confirmed the prince's tragic fate. Hope dwindled to a flicker. Then came the decree, a nationwide search for a maiden said to possess an unnatural resilience, a rare anomaly, perhaps even immunity to the curse's touch. When the royal guard arrived in Oakhaven, Sarah, whose family had, unbeknownst to her, once harbored peculiar, robust health amidst the village's ailments, was named. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced Sarah's heart. She was to be taken to Castle Eldoria to be tested. The very thought sent shivers down her spine. "I cannot go," she whispered, her voice barely audible. But the guards were resolute, their steel armor reflecting the dire necessity of their mission. "It is the king's will, maiden. Eldoria depends on it." The journey to the capital was a blur of fear and fading hope. As dusk painted the sky in hues of deep violet and molten gold, the grand silhouette of Castle Eldoria rose before her. It was magnificent, a vast fortress with impossibly high towers, now pierced by warm golden lights that glowed like scattered embers against the deepening night. The light spilled from arched windows, creating a magical bokeh effect that blurred the edges of reality. It was a sight of breathtaking beauty, yet it felt like a prison looming, waiting to swallow her whole. She was led through echoing corridors, past tapestries depicting ancient battles and portraits of long-dead kings. The air was thick with the scent of old stone, polished wood, and something indefinably regal, yet heavy with unspoken anxieties. Finally, she stood in a cavernous hall, illuminated by the soft glow of myriad candles. King Theron sat on his throne, frail and weary. Beside him stood Queen Lyra, her face etched with a familiar sorrow, and then her gaze locked on him. Prince Dirk stood before her, a silent, imposing figure. His dark leather tunic emphasized his muscular physique, and his short light brown hair was meticulously kept. His expression was a mask of solemnity. His eyes, the color of rich earth, held a deep, profound sadness that seemed to outweigh his formidable presence. He wore fine, dark gloves, even indoors, a stark reminder of his affliction. Sarah curtsied deeply, her heart hammering against her ribs. She tried to appear calm, but her hands trembled slightly. She had never been this close to royalty, let alone a man whose very touch was death. Maiden Sarah of Oakhaven, King Theron's voice rasped, "You have been brought here for a grave purpose. The whispers tell us of a resilience in your lineage, a strength against ailments. We pray it extends to the curse upon my son." Dirk shifted, his gaze meeting hers. There was no trace of welcome, only a weariness that made him seem older than his years. He held out a hand, still gloved. "I understand this is difficult for you, maiden, but the future of Eldoria?" He trailed off, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. The queen, her eyes gentle despite her grief, stepped forward. "We ask for your bravery, child. It is a simple test. Prince Dirk will touch you." Sarah swallowed, her throat dry. A simple test, a simple death sentence, perhaps. I understand, your majesty." A silence descended upon the hall, broken only by the crackling of the candle flames. Dirk slowly, deliberately began to remove one of his gloves. Her eyes were fixed on his hand, the strong, capable fingers now bared. It was a beautiful hand, powerful, yet it was also a weapon. He extended his arm, his movements slow and hesitant as if approaching a skittish fawn. His gaze was locked on her face, searching for any sign of fear or revulsion. Sarah, to her own surprise, found herself not recoiling but simply watching him, a strange calmness settling over her. She saw not a monster but a man profoundly scarred by fate. His fingertips brushed her forearm, just above the cuff of her cream blouse. Sarah braced herself. She expected a burning sensation, a sudden chill, a wave of weakness. She expected something, but there was nothing. No pain, no heat, no cold, no sudden fading of her vitality. She felt only the warm, firm pressure of his bare skin against hers. It was a normal touch, a human touch. Dirk froze, his hand still on her arm, his eyes wide with disbelief. He pulled his hand back quickly, as if burned, then stared at his own fingertips, then at her arm. He touched her again, more firmly this time, his thumb brushing her pulse point. Still nothing. Sarah felt a peculiar jolt, a spark that was not pain, but something akin to electricity, a sudden awareness of him, of their connection in this impossible moment. The king gasped, pushing himself forward on his throne. The queen pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. A collective murmur rose from the few courtiers present. Dirk looked at Sarah, his serious expression replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated wonder. His gaze swept over her, taking in her calm, unblemished skin, her steady breath, the unwavering blue of her eyes. You felt nothing?" he asked, his voice a low rumble, laced with a hope he had long abandoned. Sarah shook her head, a faint, disbelieving smile touching her lips. "Nay, your highness, nothing ill." The relief that flooded the hall was palpable, a great wave breaking. King Theron let out a shaky sigh that sounded like a sob. Queen Lyra rushed to embrace her son, a joyous cry escaping her lips, though she carefully avoided touching his bare skin. "It is a miracle," the king exclaimed, his voice stronger now. "Eldoria is saved. You shall marry, and immediately." The announcement, though expected, still hit Sarah like a physical blow. A small part of her had hoped that even if she was immune, there would be time, a choice. But she was a pawn in a far greater game. Her longing for true love and gentle companionship felt like a childish dream against the stark reality of duty. She was to be queen, a forced bride to a man she knew nothing about, save for his curse and his profound loneliness. The wedding was a blur of rich fabrics, solemn vows, and hushed reverence. Sarah wore a gown of shimmering ivory silk, embroidered with delicate silver threads depicting Eldorian lilies, a stark contrast to her humble rustic attire. Her blonde hair, woven with pearls, seemed to catch the golden light of the enormous hall, making her appear ethereal, almost a goddess. Dirk, handsome in deep indigo velvets, looked less like a groom and more like a man walking towards a solemn execution, save for the faint flicker of awe in his eyes whenever he looked at her. Yet, even during the ceremony, he avoided touching her more than was absolutely necessary, a lifetime of caution ingrained into his very being. That night, in the royal chambers, vast and opulent beyond anything Sarah had ever imagined, the full weight of her new reality descended upon her. The room was bathed in the warm glow of a roaring fireplace and bedside lamps that cast soft, golden light. A magnificent four-poster bed draped in rich fabrics dominated the space. Dirk stood by the hearth, his back to her, having shed his ceremonial robes for a simpler tunic and breeches. His hands were now bare, a testament to his newfound, terrifying freedom. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Sarah changed into a silken nightgown provided by her new ladies-in-waiting, her movements slow and deliberate. She longed for the familiarity of her old, simple clothes, the comfort of her own small cottage. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly alone. "Sarah," Dirk's voice broke the silence, deep and hesitant. He turned, his gaze sweeping over her. There was no anger, no harshness, only an overwhelming sense of caution and a profound sadness. I do not know how to do this." He gestured vaguely at the bed, then at himself. "For 20 years I have not touched another soul. I have been alone, and now you are here, my wife." His eyes, normally so serious, held a raw vulnerability that surprised her. "I am sorry that you have been forced into this. I know this is not how you imagined your life." Sarah walked towards him, her heart aching for him despite her own fears. "And I am sorry for your curse, your highness," she replied softly. "You have suffered greatly." He offered a faint, almost imperceptible nod. "I have, and I have learned caution. Even now, knowing you are immune, it is difficult to shed." He looked at her, truly looked at her. "You are beautiful, Sarah, truly, and kind." A blush warmed Sarah's cheeks at his words. His sincerity was disarming. She wanted to reach out to offer comfort, but she hesitated. He was still the cursed prince, and she, still an anomaly. They spent the night in the grand bed, a chasm of unspoken fears and expectations between them. Dirk lay on his side, facing away from her, his body rigid. Sarah lay on her back, staring at the canopy, longing for the touch she had always dreamt of, a touch that, ironically, was now possible, yet remained elusive. The gentle eroticism wasn't in explicit acts, but in the yearning, the proximity, the knowledge that their bodies were meant to be intimate, yet held back by years of trauma. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into a strange, distant routine. Sarah explored the castle, learned the customs of the court, and found solace in the vast royal library. She was Princess of Eldoria, but still very much isolated. Dirk, too, maintained his distance, though he frequently sought her out. They would walk through the castle gardens, he with his gloved hands clasped behind his back, she a few paces away. They would share meals in the grand dining hall, the long table separating them, their conversations formal, yet slowly, subtly deepening. She learned of his burdens, the constant vigilance, the fear of accidentally harming someone, the crushing weight of expectation. He learned of her simple dreams, her love for the scent of rain on dry earth, her quiet joy in weaving intricate patterns. She started to see beyond the serious prince to the man beneath, burdened, lonely, and profoundly good, and he, in turn, began to see beyond the immune maiden to the gentle, resilient woman who had brought a flicker of light into his shadowed life. One evening, As the last rays of sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows of the castle's highest turret, casting warm, golden hues across the ancient stones, they stood together, looking out over the sprawling kingdom. Dirk had begun to remove his gloves more often when alone with her, a small but significant step. "I have missed this," he murmured, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "The simple feeling of the breeze on my skin, the warmth of the sun, things I thought I would never experience again." He glanced at her, a hint of a smile, a rare softening of his serious expression. "Because of you." Sarah felt a blush rise. "I am glad, Your Highness." He turned fully to her, his rich brown eyes searching hers. "Dirk," he corrected softly. "Please, Sarah, only Dirk." A tremor went through her. "Dirk," she repeated, the name feeling both new and familiar on her tongue. He took a slow step closer, then another, until they were standing less than an arm's length apart. The air between them hummed with an unspoken energy. His gaze dropped to her hand, resting tentatively on the stone parapet. I wish to know," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "To truly know." He slowly raised his hand, his eyes never leaving hers, seeking permission. Sarah's heart quickened. This was it, the true test, not of the curse, but of their burgeoning connection. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. His fingers, strong and calloused, slowly, hesitantly reached for hers. His thumb brushed the back of her hand, sending a jolt through her that was purely human, purely intimate. He slid his fingers between hers, his grip gentle, almost reverent, and then he held her hand. Sarah gasped, not from pain, but from the sheer, overwhelming sensation of it. It was warmth, comfort, connection. It was the simple, profound joy of a man holding a woman's hand, a joy that had been denied to them both in different ways. Tears, hot and unexpected, welled in Dirk's eyes. He squeezed her hand, a silent flood of emotion pouring into the simple gesture. "It is real," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. "You are real." Sarah felt tears prick her own eyes. The chasm that had separated them, the fear, the loneliness, it began to recede, replaced by a bridge of hope and understanding. She squeezed his hand back, gently, reassuringly. Dirk, I am real, and I am here." From that day, the tentative steps towards intimacy became bolder. Hand-holding evolved into a brush of arms, a lingering touch on her shoulder, his hand resting on her waist as they walked. Each touch was a revelation, a confirmation of her immunity, a balm to Dirk's scarred soul. Each touch was also a profound act of trust and vulnerability for him, an undoing of years of self-imposed solitude. One evening, after another shared meal where their conversation had flowed easily, filled with laughter that was once a stranger to the prince's chambers, Dirk stopped her at the threshold of their bedroom. The golden light from the lamps cast their shadows long on the stone floor. He reached out, his bare hand cupping her cheek. His thumb stroked her skin, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down her spine. His eyes held a depth of emotion she had never seen before, a blend of yearning, gratitude, and a fragile hope. "Sarah," he murmured, his voice husky, "I have never desired a touch so fiercely, nor feared it so greatly, until you." Her heart throbbed. She leaned into his touch, her gaze locked with his. "I have always longed for love, Dirk, for a gentle touch, for a heart to share mine with." His other hand came up, cradling the back of her head, his fingers tangling in her loose blonde braids. Gently, so gently, he pulled her closer. His eyes searched hers, seeking a final affirmation. Sarah closed her eyes, offering herself to him fully. His lips met hers, tentative at first, then with a deepening passion that spoke of years of pent-up longing. It was a kiss of wonder, of relief, of a profound and emotional awakening. His body, once so rigid and guarded, pressed against hers, strong and warm. She wrapped her arms around his waist, holding him close, feeling the solidness of his muscular physique against her own. There was no curse, no fear, only the overwhelming sweetness of their joined breaths, their beating hearts, their shared vulnerability. The kiss deepened, a dance of growing desire and newfound freedom. There was no need for grand pronouncements, only the truth conveyed in the soft press of lips, the gentle brush of skin against skin. It was a kiss that promised a future, a true beginning. That night, in the warmth of their chamber, beneath the golden glow of the lamps, they finally came together, not just as prince and forced bride, but as man and woman. His touch, once a harbinger of death, was now a source of life, comfort, and exquisite pleasure. There was beauty in the simple acts, the holding, the caressing, the quiet whispers against her hair. For Dirk, it was a rebirth, a rediscovery of the human connection he had believed forever lost. For Sarah, it was the fulfillment of a lifelong yearning, a love found in the most unexpected and extraordinary of circumstances. The kingdom of Eldoria soon rejoiced, not just for the breaking of a curse, but for the blossoming love between their crown prince and his remarkable queen. Sarah, once the simple maiden from Oakhaven, now walked through the castle halls with a serene grace, her blue eyes shining with a calm joy, a true smile gracing her lips. She was no longer just immune to his touch. She was the only one who truly understood the depth of his heart, and the one he could finally, truly touch without fear for the rest of their days. Together, they looked towards a future filled with hope, love, and the promise of an heir built on the foundation of an impossible, beautiful reality.